Again, hello everyone, and welcome, and thank you for joining us tonight to be hearing from Tori West, an Australian Olympian and founder of Equil Labs. And Paul is going to be taking us through an AMA today. But before we get started and jump in and hear about Tori West's exciting journey, I just want to share a few quick announcements and some things before we jump into that. So just quickly, if you haven't heard of All Things Blockchain before, and this is your first meetup or you are watching the recording, we are a nonprofit association that is organized by the community and run by the community. We run monthly in-person events in Brisbane, and we also do these types of online events. So you can go to our website, All Things Blockchain, and learn a little bit more about us. If you haven't had a chance to meet myself, my name is Danielle Marie. I wear multiple different hats in the space. I'm the head blockchain trainer for TAFE Queensland. I recently took on a new role as CXO for D4 Group, which is a consultancy based in the UAE. I have recently founded Women in Digital Economy, which is my passion project to inspire and mentor more women to enter in the space. Founder of All Things Blockchain, which I had just mentioned. And then I do a couple of other community volunteer roles as the blockchain committee for the ACS, and then collaborate with Off-Chain Brisbane. If you want to learn more about me, go ahead and scan the QR code and connect with me, and I'd be happy to see how I could help you in your Web3 journey. Enough about me. I just want to do a quick introduction to the team. I am the founder and I am the driver of All Things Blockchain, but I definitely could not do it without my amazing team. And Paul Wilson being one of the contributors to the All Things Blockchain team, who's actually going to be taking you through the AMA today. So I'd like to acknowledge their efforts into helping build and grow the community. We also couldn't do it without our sponsors, so all of our operational costs, our overheads. If you get a chance to come down to any of our in real life events, we provide you free drinks and food, and that's all thanks to our sponsors. So I'm not going to go through them. If you want to learn more about our sponsors, once again, you can just go to our website, or you can go to our meetup page and you can learn more about these amazing sponsors. They're all connected into the Web3 industry. Now, we are onboarding some of our 2025 sponsors, so I do want to just give a special shout out to Candina Legal. So if anybody needs a good lawyer, so Tori, if you haven't already got a good lawyer to help you with your documentation, I highly recommend them. And then you got Greenio Pay, which is a basically like a crypto debit card. So you'll be learning more about them, and we'll be onboarding some more 2025 sponsors as well. Now, we'd like to collaborate with other community partners. So Wave of Innovation, we recently partnered with the Australian Crypto Convention, which is coming up in November, Off-Chain, which is a global nonprofit, and then Women in Digital Economy. Once again, if you want to learn more about them, you can just go over to our website and learn more about our collaboration partners. We are really focused this year on trying to grow online. We have been really focused on in real life events based in Brisbane. And this year we're actually focusing on growing globally and also online. We actually hosted our first global event at Token 49 this month. So we would really appreciate if you can, if you're on X, give us a follow and help us kind of grow the community both online and in person. We have also recently launched our community hub. We have our second one going out tomorrow. So we wanted to create, instead of a newsletter where there's news, you can go anywhere for news. So what we've done is we've basically kind of aggregated all the kind of local events that are happening online in Sydney, in Brisbane, in Melbourne, global. And then we also share links to past events. So for example, this recording, I just want to make sure I did press recording. Yes, this recording will be available in the newsletter. We also record all of our in real life events. They're all hybrid. We record those. Oz DeFi, they also record their events. So we'll also share links into that newsletter. So if you want to stay up to date with upcoming events and past events and just kind of have it all in one kind of central hub, I recommend signing up to the ADB Community Hub through our paragraph, and then you'll get that straight into your inbox on the first of every month. So that's something that we've recently started as well. So a few upcoming events that I just want to kind of make you aware of. So this week, actually, I think it's 2 days from now in Brisbane, We have Labras, who's one of our sponsors. They're a Web3 development agency. They are presenting on being a Web3 native. Now, if you're not based in Brisbane or you can't attend, that's okay. It's a hybrid event, so there's also a Zoom link where you can tune in, and that starts at 6:15. So in person, it's 5:30 in Brisbane, and then you can join in online at 6:30. We also have our Christmas party coming up. Okay, so that will be on Wednesday, December 4th. We are working on making some future more announcements with some collaboration partners. So keep your eyes and ears out for that. But we will be having our annual Christmas party. The Blockies, if anybody is interested, November 21st, that's going to be in Sydney. So that is coming up. It's an awards night that they do every single year. I myself won Blockchain Leader of the Year last year. So it's always a fun event. So if anybody wants to attend that, that will be in Sydney. And also DECA, which used to be Blockchain Australia, they also have an industry events calendar. So if you want, you can go and check out their website. It's another good resource. So Community Hub and DECA 4 page is definitely a good resource for you to be able to tap into some more community events. And anybody that wants to head down to the Australian Crypto Convention on the 23rd or the 24th in November, which is going to be in Sydney, we do have an additional 10% discount code. So you can go ahead and put in ATB10 and you can get an additional 10% off your conference. So that's it for me. If you want to stay up to date, you can go ahead, you can scan that QR code that takes you to our link tree, which has access to our website, our meetup, our socials. If you haven't already connected with us, we would love for you to connect. If you want to get involved in the community, please feel free to reach out to myself or any of the ATB team. We're always happy to collaborate and grow the community. So that is enough for me. I'm going to hand it over to Willow, who's going to be taking you through the AMA with Tori West. So over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Danielle, and welcome, Tori. It's been a long time coming. I've been wanting to speak to you since I heard you speak in March at the XRP Gold Coast event, and you thoroughly impressed the crowd there. And we've got a lot of fit and health conscious members at ATB, and you're a perfect example for the women in the digital economy as well. So thanks for making the time to join us tonight. And yeah, it turns out when you represent your country in the Olympics, it puts a lot of pressure on your schedule. So it's good to finally have you back and be a part of the AMA tonight. So can you start with the journey to the Olympics? You're in Paris as a heptathlete, and yeah, how did you get there? And we'll get to the entrepreneurial stuff after that.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I'm glad it worked out. It has been ridiculous post-Olympics. Like, it's just, yeah, you come back, you know, it means a lot to a lot of people. So you try to touch base. I'm actually in my hometown at the moment, so it's been pretty crazy. But yeah, I went to the Olympics this year. I did the heptathlon, which is 7 track and field events over 2 days. And they are the 100-meter hurdles, high jump, shot put, 200, long jump, javelin, 800. And the whole goal is to score as many points as you can. You get points based on how fast you run and how far you throw. So therefore, you know, the goal is just to do your best across the board. And yeah, and the winner is the person with the most points. And it's actually the hardest event to qualify for in track and field. They only take the top 24 in the world, whereas for the sprints, they'll take top 52. For the shot put or javelin, they'll take top 36. So it's exceptionally hard. And it was also one of the original Olympic events. So when the Olympics actually began back in, I guess, ancient Greek days, or I don't know if it was ancient Greek, but it was actually a pentathlon, which involved discus and javelin and running and a few other events. So it has a lot of history. It's very challenging. I've been doing heptathlon seriously since 2017. I started relatively late, so I really like 2021 is when I properly started. Before that, I was doing athletics, but you know, seriously committed myself to heptathlon when I was 21. So 7 years later, I'm 28. Finally made the Olympics. It's been an incredibly hard journey, not just in terms of, you know, training and doing the work required to be at that level, but you know, athletics is a sport that doesn't pay you. So therefore, you're putting full-time effort into a sport that you don't make a full-time living. And so people ask me often, they're like, you're a full-time athlete. I'm like, I put full-time effort in. That doesn't mean I'm paid for being a full-time athlete or whatever. So yeah, so basically this year, COVID, I sat out for a few years. It was very tough to compete. They shut down everything. And that's when I started getting very seriously into blockchain development and building my company as it is now. And then obviously COVID passed. And then last year I had a breakout year. I spent 5 months in Europe competing to basically build back my experience, like, I guess, build back my confidence in my ability to do heptathlons, but also get experience in the international stage leading into an Olympic year. And then I did this season, which was my huge breakthrough season. So I qualified the Olympics in an extremely impressive way. I did 4 heptathlons in 4 countries over 11 weeks, and I scored 6,200 points twice, which is like the best score by an Australian in 16 years. And even the Europeans told me I had the hardest path to qualify. I did it. I backed myself into a corner. It was the hardest thing I ever did, the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And for crypto traders, the one thing I say, so you understand what it was like the biggest leverage trade of my life. I put everything on the line to get there, and it paid off. And yeah, it was incredible journey. So now I can call myself an Olympian, but I also have, as we're going to get into, a lot of entrepreneurial things on the side as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the trading reference too. That really sets it really sets a precedent too for what you're all about. You're an overachiever. Like, you couldn't just do one sport. You've got 7 on the go. It must be a real art form to bring that all together on the day. It's just, I mean, you know, athletes devote their entire lives to one discipline, and you've got 7 on the go. So, like I said, it sort of sets the scene for how you roll, I think. But in the midst of all that, you're training in the lead up to the Olympics over the years. And when was it you recognised the problem with athletes and their data? Because it's not the first thing you think of when you think of proprietary data with athletes. Like, I think of musicians and visual artists and authors or something like that, you know. But athletes' data is arguably a lot more valuable and a lot harder to get, and it's robust data that you can't just replicate off the cuff. You've got to devote your life to it, but it's still not something we recognize straight up as, and that's why I really want to get you in front of the audience to elaborate on it. But when did you first recognize that data is not yours and there's a problem there that needs to be solved?
Well, the first time I recognized it when I realized I'm probably not going to earn a living from my sport, right? You know, I don't own that data. I have to pay to compete at my national championship, but yet they sell reports to commercial partners to advertise at the event and make money off me attending, even though the athletes are what make it. So that was like, you know, the first thing. And around that time, I was, I guess, so a bit of background. I didn't go to, well, I started a university degree. I didn't finish. I quickly realized it wasn't really necessary for what I wanted to do, but also it wasn't realistic to train full-time, work full-time, and study full-time. So I had to pick only 2. And so I chose to work and study. Work and train. And the work I did, I started off very humble beginnings. I started off just doing graphic design, right? And then that led into, you know, website development, and then web app development, then phone app development, and then blockchain development. So it was like a progression based on the interests I had. And in my early days, I did a lot of work for free and for local, you know, businesses, but also sports organizations. So I worked with grassroots community sports clubs. I worked with state governing authorities. I worked with the national body, and I also worked for Oceania Athletics as well. And in that, I learned a lot about the data systems and like how results are sort of put through. And it's very archaic. It's nothing fancy that goes on, but there's a lot of data, and all that data is used in reports, and the reporting is used to justify government investment or tourism investment into events because, you know, there's money there, right? So I started to see a bit behind the scenes, and it didn't really click at that time either. I was just basically working to get experience, to build a portfolio, and then also struggling a bit as an athlete. You know, I had to train really hard, had competitions I had to, you know, travel for. I lived in Townsville, so you have to travel to Brisbane and Sydney to compete. At one stage in my career, I was working 4:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. at a cafe, and then 10 to 3 at a bank, and then working in the afternoon, and then working on my digital business at night. Like, that was what I had to do to actually fund my realistic journey in sport. And I just thought that was so wrong, because sport is such a great thing and there is an obvious value to it, which we all recognize, but it's not tangible. We can't use it. It's not really benefiting us in a tangible way apart from that good feeling. And so then when it came to 2020 and I really got deep into blockchain development and understanding that world and how value is derived by consensus and all these different ideas around how we can use data and data ownership, I thought, this is it. This is how if we can connect this, if I can bridge this world to my sports world, I think we're really going to be onto something and we can change the way things. It's not actually change the game, it's changing like the field of play, like it just everything. So that's really my journey to realization of, first of all, the problem, because I experienced it firsthand, and then also seeing that we could actually solve it with a completely different way of thinking about data and ownership. So
Yeah, that's really good that you you had both the experience as an athlete, but also got to see how the sausage was made when you were working for them. So you've been able to bring that together. So that's and you know, start thinking about how to solve it. Because I was shocked to learn that when you're training for the Olympics, that you're signing over all your data to like government and what is it, the Australian Institute of Sport and things like that, I suppose, and those
yeah,
other institutions that take all that. And I suppose when you're in that moment as an athlete, you've dedicated so much time and effort, you'd be just ready to sign your life away. You wouldn't even think about it because that's the path to the Olympics.
100%. You don't think about it. Most athletes don't, you just want to do your sport. You just want to have the support to do your sport. And even I'd say most administrators don't understand the full extent of it either. I just understood it because I was, ballsy enough to dig deeper. I'm someone who will never sign anything to do with AIS or Queensland Academy of Sport. Well, you have to for teams. I do preface that. You do have to for teams. But in terms of if I wanted to get support from the centralized system, I'd have to sign away and say, you can have all my data and I have to give that to you. And, they can do whatever they want. Now, I'm not saying it's all for evil and bad. I'm just saying that I should have more control over that, especially if they're using that data to make, important decisions about my athletics. Like they might see my medical data and say, hey, there's this history here. We don't know if we want you involved. Or, sometimes they use the data for studies and whatnot, which is fine for educational purposes, but there's money in education, right? So if they're using athlete data for free, but yet are using that to sell education degrees and get, people doing sports science degrees and PhDs, like there's money exchange there, there's value. We need to unlock that and we need to give athletes back some sort of control and I guess royalty if that's going to be the case. And it's not going to happen unless someone actually like myself is like, I see it, I'm going to do something about it. And that's the journey I'm on. So
yeah, you've come along at the right time. Like just this moment when Web3's burgeoning and starting to really expand and on people's radar. So how was your first foray into crypto? Where did that come about? Did you have the same 2017 story as everyone sort of comes in then and
I bought
gets into that bull
Ethereum.
run?
Yeah, I bought Ethereum in 2017 and Bitcoin Cash, and I made money in a day from Bitcoin Cash. And I bought a drone when I was like 21, and I was like, this is so cool. And then obviously it didn't crash and whatever. But then in 2020, 21, I was actually a bit more informed, and so I made better choices, and that worked out well. And that's so I got into it by obviously taking advantage of a bull run at the time. And then I got really deeply into it when I started learning about the money system and like fiat currencies and how they fail and like, a whole myriad of different things. I was sort of had, I guess, your red pill moment when you go, oh my gosh, the world is not as it seems. And then, I just started to see huge opportunities with the tech, and it was very progressive. Like it just, and COVID was a great time to get deep into it because what else are you going to do when you're stuck inside? I just researched and started tinkering with projects and learning as much as I could.
Yeah. So you talked about the downside of the government and these institutions having the data, the downsides for the athlete. What are the upsides of the athlete owning their data as far as their journey through? Because we talked about the data's valuable, but it's not something they want to sell in that moment. But so it's something they accumulate in their digital wallets. And when we're talking, to elaborate on what that data is, we're talking wearable, your data from your Aura ring, your nutrition, your times, all this valuable data that people want to get their hands on. what are the benefits for the athlete being able to hang on to that data in the moment when it's sort of not something they want to sell that early? And
I
how
think,
can it sort of help their performance and things like that?
yeah, so with ownership, like it's a very hard thing to tell an athlete, you should own your data. Like it's a hard sell. Like it's very, because you have to go through a very educational experience in blockchain and blah, 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 blah. So I don't really take that route. Tried it, it's very difficult and I failed. So instead it's like, with the product I'm building, we're more focused on building an experience where it just makes sense. It's like, I have my data in a wallet, I can keep it there, or if I want to, I can consent and tick a box on, that's I'm fully aware of, that says I'm going to put my data in data aggregate pools, and that if that gets sold, I'm going to earn something back off that. So the first thing is just general control. Like if there is opportunities and if there is money being made on my data, I should have something for that. That's the first thing, especially if I'm already working for that data, it's already being produced. So that's the first thing. And the other thing too is like the Olympics is a great example of, athletes, are front and center of that event. Like you're right. But you're not allowed to show anything about your sponsors during an event, right? You're not allowed to post certain content. There are even certain rules about use of your image and videos of you competing at that event, but you're the one competing. So just things like that, like as an athlete, you actually really need that to build a case for sponsorship. You want to see, you need exposure, you need attention, you need eyes to be able to get those deals across the line and give value to a company that wants to back you. But you just can't. But it's you competing, and that it doesn't make sense, but that's just the way it is. So that's the other important thing about ownership. Is like, all right, if we can give some sense of ownership and that power to athletes through a digital experience, then they're going to see that, oh, I want to own that. Like I can see, well, why can't I have that? That is me. Like maybe I can tokenize me as an athlete. So, for media broadcasting companies, like we want to show these athletes somewhere in that, I'm connected to that with blockchain tech so that you can get something back from that. So I hope I'm answering your question well, but that's the opportunity.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure.
And the upside.
It's
Yeah.
retaining ownership and control, and it's and restoring power to the athlete. They're doing all the work, and they deserve to have that data and opt in or opt out when they choose, and that can be a powerful thing for someone's training and yeah, like you said, trying to secure funding for these things. You can't work 10 like jobs and train full time, so it really opens up a lot of doors there and helps out. So, but and there's also another thing where I've seen some protocols, they're able to share data anonymously, but it helps the conglomerate that's together. So like car manufacturers that have the self-driving data, like you might have Mercedes, Tesla, and a third one, they've all solved certain problems, but if they could just share that data anonymously, they could solve all the problems and work together without relinquishing their actual IP proprietary data. So it sort of falls into that line, which is being worked on as we speak. So, but so you founded Equil Labs to solve that problem, and you've got in amongst that you've got Equil X. So that will be the Strava or the social media side of retaining this data.
Yeah, so Equil Labs is the digital development company. We built a few different things, but Equil X is like it's the baby. It's like the main thing I'm trying to push through with all this vision. And it's, I guess, the way I describe it now is like it's a LinkedIn for athletes. So it's a central point where you have your profile, your accolades, everything about you as an athlete. And then it's a data marketplace for like sports brands and agents. So our goal is to build a platform that gives an athlete so much value that they want to contribute data. So we don't think of them as consumers, they're contributors. Like how are we going to get athletes to give? And so we have to create that value, I guess, exchange. And then with the data, we can be really creative about how we package that up and create, revenue from that. So whether that's, a simple version could be sort of agencies, they're looking to match athletes with brands, and brands want to know like the athlete's social following, what's their marketing engagement. Also, are they actually a decent athlete in what we're looking for? Because there's a lot of athletes who look really good and they're very good at the marketing side, but if you actually look at the stats, they're not actually an elite athlete. So there's different nuances like that you can capture and provide better insights for brands so they get better ROI. So that's one facet of it, and that's probably going to be the lowest hanging fruit facet that I see. And the other one is exactly touching on what you said before, is creating ways to, you know, through zero knowledge proofs, ZBKs, to put data anonymously into aggregate data pools that are specific to whether it's like sleep stuff or there's so, like when you have that, there's so many different things you can do with it, but actually creating those insight reports and analytics for, you know, whoever finds that of value. And an interesting use case, which is similar, to draw a parallel, is the Australian Stock Exchange, right? You'd think that's sort of, there's a sort of modeling there that I'm trying to replicate, whereby if you want to be listed on the Australian Stock Exchange, you have to provide them a bunch of information, data, to be listed and to be verified. But what happens is the ASX actually takes that data and puts it into an insights report. And that insights report is actually highly valuable, and they sell that, right?
Yeah.
So that's a really interesting use case that people don't really understand, but ASX makes like that data, and you know, people sign, like obviously that's consent, that's not, they haven't done the wrong thing in doing that, but there is business opportunity if you can identify it like that.
Yeah, and that's what I love about this athletes data side of things. When you first started talking about it, at first you're like, you can see the potential, and then you start digging, scratching the surface, and it just keeps going and going and going. Like I'm really interested in how, because you've got data that's being generated by peak performance, so it filters down throughout anyone with any. You don't have to be an athlete to then benefit from it, but you need to be an athlete to generate the data that's going to be beneficial. And I just really like the idea of all this data filtering down through everyone from a fitness to a health and wellness perspective. And is that what Peak is all about? There's a Peak element to Equil Labs.
Yeah, Peak is a separate app completely. It's something I built. It's a training diary that's specific to, it's more personal to me. I haven't actually put that out. I wanted to create something I loved. Yeah, no, that's right. Athletes use it, but it's not something I've put out because I've been more focused on Equil Labs. But it is something where we do collect a lot of data. Like athletes submit training data, they link in their physio and their coach, and we call that the performance matrix, so everyone's on the same page with everything. It's basically just a digital athlete training diary. And yes, it does collect data, and that data can go through to Equil Labs. So that is a vision there, but it's not probably the current thing, that we're trying to.
That's right. So just to sort of elaborate and give another example of how this sort of works, could you see, or it would work as an athlete's training away and collecting all this data, and there's so much of it from every aspect of their training, and then it can accumulate in their digital wallet, and they decide when they opt in and opt out of sharing it. But then at the end of a career, you've accumulated all this data, and then that could be like encapsulated in an NFT, and say, you know, you get to represent your country in the Paris Olympics. Everything that led up to that point, all the data that led up to that point can be sort of put into an NFT sort of thing, and then later on, like you've got a physical gold medal or something like that to represent your time at the Olympics, then you've also got everything that led up to that point. It's not like this thing in the background where you can't see. And then that's also another thing that's of high value, and maybe at the end of their career they can sort of look at selling that NFT or something like that. Does that sort of
the digital collectible stuff is pretty exciting. I think that's a really cool part about it, because it really, you know, uses fan experiences. I definitely, like, for me, like, I reckon a cool vision, I would love at the end of my career to have all my data on chain. You can see my profile, everything encapsulated there. I think that'd be a really cool thing to walk away from your career with, and then that's valuable. That's created value, that, you know, that wallet address now has value because of everything attached to it. And so therefore the transactions you do with that wallet address in whatever aspect, you know, becomes a value too. So yeah, there is a long-term vision. I think it's much further, like, it's a bigger vision, like in terms of thinking 10 years down the track of what it looks like. Yeah, but I think everyone like loves looking back at old memorabilia they have with sport. You know, you can go, like, I'm an athlete. Often when I'm in social situations, people who aren't particularly like athletes as well, they say, oh, I used to do this back in high school. And I want to say to them, show me that on chain. What did you do? Like, you know, I want to see it. You know, have a world where you can show what you did as a 6-year-old at, you know, your local club meet, because You know, at the moment, a lot of stuff is just saved on websites statically or central databases, and
Yeah. Oh, we've lost you for a second. See if she comes back.
Did you want to maybe, does she know that we've lost her?
I'll just ping her. I don't know.
In the meantime, while we're trying to see if we can get Tori back, if anybody does have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, providing we haven't lost Tori for the rest of the night. But I think it's absolutely fascinating, you know, seeing it from a different perspective on, you know, how data is used and collected.
Yeah, that was my biggest takeaway since we first started
I think
hearing
she might
about
be
this
back.
sort of thing. It's just, she's back. Now you're muted.
sorry, everyone, my phone battery just died, but it's okay now. So
Good to have
sorry.
you back. So, what would be the vision for Equil Labs in the next 5 years? Where's the dream scenario? Where do you want to see it?
I want us to be at a point where we can start partnering with big organizations like the Olympics and start tokenizing
Yeah.
results and medals on chain for athletes. And yeah, that's what I would love to see. We have Brisbane Olympics in 2032.
Yeah, it's perfect
I'm not going to be
opportunity.
there as an athlete, but I certainly would like to be there, you know, as a, you know, supplier for digital assets for athletes of results and medals. I think that'd be awesome.
And how receptive do you think they'd be, the institutions, as far as like the ones that would be giving up the centralized control? Are they even aware of? They're probably not
Nah.
even aware of the
Nah,
situation. That's the normal for them. And
to be honest, I don't think I have this. I don't think there is negative interests at play. You know, I don't think anyone's
oh
trying
yeah,
to screw athletes. People just do what they do because it's a job, it's a salary. I don't believe that it's really evil. I just think that people are unaware, and you need someone like me to come in and be like, "This is what we're going to do, and it's going to change everything, and it's, you know, it's going to be good for the greater good." So, yeah, I don't think there's a lot of negativity. There may be maybe one or two in levels of power who may be aware, but I really don't think the masses of them are bad.
yeah. It's just how things are done. It's done well for us. Like we've seen a lot of. For a population our size, we've had a lot of representation in the Olympics over the years, and I think these institutes have done really well. But we're at the end of the spectrum there, and it's time for some change for sure. So, what sort of crossovers could you talk about with sports and business? Like you've obviously got plenty of drive, which you need for a heptathlete, and that same drive propels you through all the challenges in building in Web3, because I can imagine there's a few roadblocks.
Oh yeah, it's exceptionally hard. And like that's the beauty of this. Like athletics has conditioned me to walk out this journey because it's not easy. There's regulation, there's dealing with tech that's not even mature enough yet. You know, there's costs on chain, there is just general costs of building a company and getting talent to help you build. So athletics has been the greatest teacher for me. And people ask often, how do I train full time, especially for an event like the heptathlon, or do my work? And I actually think it makes me a better worker because I'm held to a level of accountability that you just don't have otherwise. Like I can't do athletics at the level I do as well as I do it unless I've got my health right. I've got my, you know, physical body right. So that's my health. My mind right. I have to be thinking correctly. And also my emotions, you know, that all has to be aligned to reach something. And I try to apply that with the company and the work we're doing. We're trying to change something. We're trying to do something big here. It's going to take a lot of effort. It's not just like you know, my work is everything. Everything I see every time I'm at the track, even my crossover as an Olympian or in your business and just chatting to people. You know, I'm listening to people. I'm wanting to hear people at different roles, whether it's athletes or, you know, administrators, what their experience is like. So that can help me build a better product in what we're doing. So the crossover, I don't see any lines. Like it's just, I feel like it's a bit of an overflow of myself because I'm just very
Yeah.
passionate about it. And, you know, I've tried to solve the problem for myself first. Like I was able to fund my athletics by working, but I also did a lot of value exchange with businesses. So like I had a physio and I would build stuff for him and do help with his digital work. And then he provided me the best physio service you could possibly imagine, you know? So I had to learn about value consensus and exchange. And, you know, a lot of the support I got wasn't money. It was just people opening doors for me because I was willing to give in another way too. And so there's so much crossover. It's very hard to break apart the worlds, to be honest.
Yeah. No, but like you said, it's just you've got that attitude where you're willing to get up and speak up and push around a bit and try and get something over the line. So what advice would you give aspiring, like young girls, particularly aspiring female entrepreneurs? What advice would you give them to just be a bit more like that, to, I don't know, be a bit more pushy, could you say? Like, or just a bit more forthcoming and getting like they see a problem instead of you know, just letting it go because that problem's embedded into the DNA of the institution. Like, what advice would you give to push in and say, no, we're going to do something about this, and I've got some ideas?
I think the first one is know your value. So just know who you are, like know your value first, because that will help you bring confidence to whatever you're trying to do. I'd say two. It's a good question. I'm just trying to think. When you say girls, like just entrepreneurs, like wanting to push and change things, is that?
Yeah, for sure. Like,
I'd say know your audience, right? Know who you're talking to,
that's a
know
good
who the
one.
decision makers are. Don't attack a frontline person who's just volunteering or like just trying to do a job. Go to the decision makers, okay? Present your case and be respectable. Like I think respect, and you know, I've copped a few huge disappointments in my sport that if I'm public about, like that people are like, oh, but you know, like cop it with class, be better, and then use that to make you better so that when you do get that position, you have more authority in that. You know, you're not going to be bitter about it because no one really wants to deal with someone who's scorned in the past who's trying to complain about something now. Like, I think, just know your audience and be wise about how you go to deliver things because, business and changing things, it's all about people. It's business is just a people, but like people work the machine. So just understand people. Yeah.
I think also to add to that, from what I see, is your work ethic and that drive that you've got allows you to, you've done the work. So you can stand confidently and say, well, this can be done better because I know what it is to be here and doing this now. And so just to have that drive and do the work sort of allows you to, gives you that confidence to sort of take charge and do what needs to be done in your life and throughout your journey. So that's been really interesting.
There's no excuse for hard work in sport, especially something like track and field. You
exactly. And
you get exposed very quickly.
That's why this data is just so valuable. Like at my age, I can't just go out and be an athlete now and replicate this data, but I could pick up a guitar and become a musician eventually. But, you know, and you could get that type of data going, but you'll never get that athletic data unless, like, when you're out of that sort of age group and the wear on your body and things like that. That's what makes it so valuable. But I've got a question here from Sam Leslie. Where do you see the major resistance for Equil X, if there's any, and how do you think you will circumvent it?
The first thing that comes to mind with major resistance was probably regulations, especially there isn't many good examples of consumer products with blockchain integrated technology that are largely successful, right? So I think the first bit of resistance is like, I can't be like, when we launch, which will be hopefully in the next 6 months, we can't explicitly say this is a blockchain product, get on it. And people are like, what? You know, like that's the first thing. Like people are actually kind of scared, especially consumer markets. So that's the first resistance is like, in a way, you build a Web2
public perception.
Yeah, the Web2 product that's actually a Trojan horse with Web3 stuff.
Yeah,
People
I
are
like
using
that.
it, they don't even know what it is, but they're going to benefit from it. And we're doing all the right things, on a regulatory stance to make sure that everything's kosher. So that's.
So can you just elaborate a little bit on the regulatory stance? Like what particular regulations? I just have trouble getting my head around that. It's like, I think regulations like financial regulations and things that when we're talking about blockchain and payments and things like that. But how does the regulatory landscape affect an app retaining athletes' data.
Well, if the athlete's earning off that, then it could be considered a financial contract.
Oh, right. So it's can be offered as a security. Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, these are probably questions that this is why I got a lawyer. So this,
Yeah.
so that's something we're actively working through. And we've had some pretty major things happen this year that will allow us to go to market, which is exciting. But yeah, that's why I have a lawyer. So I probably couldn't answer your questions quite as well, diving deep
No,
into
that's fine. That's yeah, but it points out exactly what the pain point is there. So would you find if you found the regulators are friendly enough at the moment and we're moving in the right direction? Obviously, it's a slow process, but you feel good about where that's heading?
Yeah, I'm not. I've had to really start to like understand that world a lot more since walking this path, especially in the last 12 months. And from what I understand, particularly because I'm not trying to build a speculative token product, so I'm trying to build a consumer product that solves real problems. So the way I see it is that we need more use cases like Equil Labs out there to show what we can do so regulators can start making better decisions because they're trying to regulate something based off the past and the faults of the past. We need working, successful examples that can help, steer conversations and where we go. So I actually see what we're doing as an opportunity to help bring this along in a way.
You're pioneers.
Yeah.
You're pioneering a path for regulation. That's the bleeding edge out the forefront of the whole lot. And like you said, we're the one of the pain points for you is the regulators don't actually understand what they're trying to regulate because it's so new and exciting and they're trying to apply those old laws and things like that. So hopefully
exactly.
the Australian regulators will continue to be friendly, and I think they're waiting to see what happens in bigger markets as well, and then they'll plagiarize different regulations and framework from there. So
yeah, exactly. And we're in a pretty good position at the moment with our sort of discourse with that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm honestly I'm excited to see where it goes from here. But obviously I don't know. The way I feel about it is that when I build a product, I have two product lines. I don't know if I'm two product lines. So one line is like, this is the bottom line business. This is how we're going to build our business. And it's not going to cross over into regulation, danger land, right? And then we're building at the same time this other innovative product utilizing blockchain. And we're towing right on the edge of the regulation and then helping to try to push it. So we've had to be extremely strategic in our development process, which is kind of cool. It feels like a bit of like a strategy game. But yeah, that's how we've had to think about it because I don't think we can build a business fully with the lack of regulation, I guess we have, but we're going to certainly try and have fallback plans to mitigate that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. All right, well, that has been very insightful. I'm glad we got to bring that to our audience and talk about and just put this on their radar because I think it's really important. And the way that the athlete's data filters down into everyone's lives as far as health, wellness, fitness, and like I said, we've got a lot of people that are a lot more health conscious these days, and that seems to be a common theme throughout the Web3 community as well. You get that orange pill moment and you see how all the systems are broken and you start to do better for yourself with nutrition and not only finances, every aspect of your life. So look, thanks very much for your insightful comments. I'm going to try and see if there's any more questions from the audience before.
Got one in the chat, Paul, and then if anybody else has any other questions, feel free to either
Sam
unmute.
Leslie's?
Yes, have you covered that one?
Yeah, I asked. Yeah, we went through that before. So the major resistance for Equil Labs would be the regulatory landscape and the framework, and being out in front of that and circumnavigating it would be have a good lawyer and work on the edge.
My apologies, I must have missed that. But if anybody else has a question, feel free to unmute yourself or pop it into the chat. And I guess my question for Tori West, for anybody that wants to follow your journey or, get involved or learn more about, the applications that you're building, what's the best way for them to learn more about Equil Labs and get involved?
Yeah, I think the best way, to be honest, at this stage is to follow me on X and Instagram, because I try to, I guess, present my life as an athlete and also building stuff, which is, it's two different worlds. So that's the best way to do it, because a lot of the user base I build is off my personal brand as well at the moment, especially for preliminary testing before we go to market. So that's the best way to get the up-to-date stuff. Yeah.
I've just
And
put
when
your
do you plan on going to market? When's the
So in the
roadmap?
next 6 months. So we just recently, I guess, got an exemption by ASIC to launch. So we're basically in that process of utilizing that and using it. They obviously give you stipulations or whatever. So I don't have a firm timeline yet, because there is quite a bit of work to do, but I hope in the next 6 months we're out there in the market. Certainly before I go to the World Championships next year in September. So yeah,
where's that?
September next year.
Whereabouts?
Oh, Tokyo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, you hope to launch before then?
Oh, well before then. Yeah, that's the goal. Yeah.
Cool. Well, hopefully we can get you back on for a chat when you've launched, and we can get a bit of a demo and go through and have a look at the app and what you've been working on.
Yeah, for sure. That'd be great.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much for joining us tonight. That was fantastic.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.